Kia ora koutou everyone, and welcome along to the next interview we have in our series of live Facebook interviews with industry experts. Tonight we have got none other than Ben Warren, the founder of BePure and one of the biggest brains when it comes to holistic health and nutrition and overall well-being. We're pretty excited to have him here. Before I introduce him, let me introduce myself. Kia ora, my name is Erin Maloney and I'm the founding director of Tiny Nation. Tiny Nation is a home-based early learning organisation. We've set out to do things a little bit differently and shake the sector up a bit with our approach. And we're really focused on partnership and collaboration, which is why we are invested in doing things like this and sharing learning with the rest of the sector and with our community of parents and educators and teachers. So that's who we are and that's what we're about. We're all about working with like-minded organisations to create amazing learning opportunities for our young tamariki and give them the best start in life. And that's what we're all here for. So tonight we're really excited to have Ben on board because we are pretty amped to hear what he has to say about holistic health, wellbeing and nutrition, and particularly how we model that for our tiniest learners. So I'm going to bring Ben in and then I'm going to do a wee intro. So just bear with me. Kia ora, Ben, how are you?
Good, thanks, Erin. Thanks for having me on.
Good, thanks for being here. I'm going to do a wee intro and I'm going to rely on my notes here so I don't get anything too wrong because you come to us with a raft of experience. So recognised as a leader in his field with over 15 years of hands-on experience, Ben Warren is the founder of BePure and one of New Zealand's most renowned clinical nutritionists and holistic health experts. Ben has made it his mission to build a new future of health by empowering and educating New Zealanders on the importance of diet, lifestyle and nutrition. Ben has a master's in holistic nutrition and is currently completing his PhD on the relationship between mental health and nutrition. Over the past 15 years, Ben has founded BePure, developed the BePure nutritional support product range, toured the country with seminars, series talking to over 70,000 people, of which myself and my mother were two, and is currently the clinical director of BePure Clinic. And Ben also lives with his wife and two daughters on a 15-acre organic farm, very much living everything that he teaches, where they grow over 80% of the food that they eat. He's particularly passionate about how we as adults model for our tiny learners what health and nutrition look like from a very young age. And we're really excited to have you here. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Erin. Thanks for that lovely introduction.
Alrighty, so we'll kick straight into it. And this is the first question I ask all of our live guests as a part of our interview series, because we're really big on the why and on Simon Sinek's whole theory of why we do what we do and the passion that drives our work. And so we've got a really big why for the work that we do at Tiny Nation. And we're really keen to understand what's your why. We know you've got a really chunky background there in health and nutrition, and I think I've heard a little bit of this before, but do you just want to share a little bit more about why you've come to do the work that you do?
Yeah, absolutely, of course. So I'm originally from just north of London, so originally from UK, and I had childhood asthma as a child. It was pretty severe, it impacted my, I couldn't run without having an inhaler and impacted my football. And I didn't really think anything of it. I was just, it was asthma. There's not a lot you can do about it. And so you kind of go through life. And I became a very good golfer. So I became a sort of a better than scratch golfer. And I was recruited to go to university in America, to a top university to play golf. Met my wife, who's a Kiwi, so I always kind of joke that I'm a souvenir from her OE, that she brought me back to New Zealand. And a natural progression for me was to be a pro golfer. And as I moved away from the coaches and the physio support that I had at university, I started getting major back problems, and so I became a professional golf coach while I was trying to get my back sorted. And I still had sort of asthma as an adult, so still had to panic about whether I had my Ventolin with me, where if I was staying anywhere overnight. And so anyway, I went on a course to learn about optimal joint mechanics for the golf swing, so biomechanics for the golf swing. And it was about the third or fourth day of this course, and a lady on the course looked at me and she said, "Ben, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but I can see you've got a really bad back." And I was like, "Oh, how do you know I've got a bad back?" And she started, saying, "Oh, we can see you've got a twist in your pelvis, you've got a scoliosis in your spine, one shoulder's higher than the other." And I actually knew all that. I was working with an Excel Backs physio and a chiro and things like that. And then she said something that literally changed my life. She said, "Yeah, it looks like it's driven by a food intolerance. Looks like it's dairy." And I was like, first of all, how can a food intolerance give me a bad back, right? And she started explaining that we've got shared nerve innervation from our spinal segments. And so as soon as we start shutting down organs, you start shutting down muscles that stabilize your pelvis. And I said, "Well, what makes you think it's dairy?" And she goes, "Well, you don't breathe very well through your nose and your head's migrated forward, so you can kind of breathe better through your mouth." And she goes, "That's very common in people with dairy, problems with dairy."
Wow.
And at that stage I was still very, very skeptical about the fact that nutrition could be causing this problem. And so I was like, well, surely there must be some test that I could take to tell me this. And she goes, "Yeah, you need to do an IgG, IgA, ELISA blood test, which looks to see if your body's building immune molecules to the food you're eating." And so I was like, "Great, where can I get one of them?" And she goes, "Well, it has to be done through labs in America, but I can help you organize it." So I got that organized, and a number of weeks later, the results came back that I had a very severe immune response to whey protein, which is found obviously in dairy. So I cut out dairy, and my back didn't get better straight away. But an unexpected benefit was that within about 2 weeks, my asthma just mysteriously disappeared. And I was like, this is crazy. How did I not know that the food I was eating had such a huge impact on my experience of life? And then I was like, well, how does everyone not know this? And so in that moment, it turned off me wanting to hit golf balls and turned on, a pretty strong desire to learn about the human body and learn about nutrition and learn about how we can improve our experience of life. And so I went and retrained to one of the top health and performance institutes in California, ended up getting a master's degree in holistic nutrition. At the moment, I'm sort of 4 years into a PhD through Canterbury University. That's more kind of just for fun, just looking at mental health and nutrients. I know it's not a good idea to do a PhD for fun. And just for fun, yeah, and not advisable. And and so really for me, it's always been you're motivated to kind of share this experience, and that's my why. Is that for me, I thought I was a smart guy, and I didn't know that food was so dramatically impacting how I felt, and so I kind of figured that other people probably don't know that either, and so what I'd try and do is help educate people and have them be aware of how food can impact your experience of life.
Beautiful. That's pretty big, isn't it?
Yeah, it's served a strong vibe. It's been a very strong why for many, many years now.
So we were just talking before we came on, Ben, about how I met you about 12 or 13 years ago on one of your first weekend seminars, where I think you talked about your vision to touch the lives of 1 million people in New Zealand at that stage, or something like that, with your health and nutrition work.
Yeah. So I'm still on that. We've kind of lost count, but since that point, I have, like you said, I've spoken to over 70,000 people. So we, got quite a large. I think, I'd like to think we're getting close to that. We've actually just set our 10-year goals for the company, which is to have 1 billion wellness days. So within 10 years to create 1 billion wellness days. And so we've got some metrics where we can measure, how we're impacting people's lives on a daily level. So it's kind of fun to set goals out there and then to see if you can stretch to reach them. We'll see.
Nice. So let's talk about BePure, because that's the train that you're on to help you achieve these lofty goals. So this is the scientific wellness company that you founded. On your website, you talk about a vision to create health journeys where people are empowered to take self-health ownership. So it's all about that empowerment. What does that look like in practice, and how do you live into that?
Sure. So primarily we're an education company. So we're educating, and so what it looks like in practice, it may be that we're just a touch point on somebody's social media feed, where we're just giving them a piece of information around, say, it's winter at the moment. People are low in vitamin D. That affects low mood. It affects your immunity. So it may be just a touch point like that on social media. It may be a blog. It may be that they then come into online programs and whole food eating programs, or it may even be that they then come into clinic programs and comprehensive programs where literally you can get some of the most comprehensive blood work done and digestive system analysis done anywhere in the world. And so it's kind of full spectrum. So it looks very different for very different people. And for us, we try and meet people where they're at and then walk with them on this journey towards having great health.
Yeah, and if you haven't checked out Ben's website, the BePure website already, there is such a raft of amazing free resources on there, like you say, from blogs just to tips and tricks and menus and recipes and all kinds of things. Very cool.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we've got an incredible team, by the way, behind me doing that side. So don't think it's just me.
I know. I want to meet your website developer. Amazing.
Yeah, we got some incredible people.
So you often talk about people not getting the nutrients they need, and that's probably a big driver behind the product range that you've created. And you talk about that even when you've got a good diet, you don't necessarily get those good nutrients that you need. So what do you think is most lacking in terms of nutrients, and how do we make up for it?
Yeah, it's a great question. And so, I'll kind of go back, if you like, and kind of fill people in on how I came to this, because when I was doing my master's, I always believed that we could get, everything we needed from our diet. So I just, we get told that, and so I believed that. And then when I did my master's in nutrition, I had to get the most comprehensive nutrition analysis software that there is. And so this software is tied into the USDA database of the nutrients found in the food. So I was super excited about getting software. So I put my own diet into it, which is a very healthy diet, lots of leafy greens, quinoa salads, whole food diet, good quality proteins, and analyzed it. And I was gutted to see I was deficient in 5 key nutrients. And so then I started looking at, well, what do we actually need to eat to get, this is just the minimums, the RDAs, the recommended daily, which is the minimum we need not to have a disease deficiency. And so I was like, my gosh. And so then I started analyzing, clients' diets, and I found that it was, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to get the nutrients. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Modern farming techniques, modern food convenience, modern food choices, lots of reasons why. So anyway, I started getting into looking at nutrients. And so some of the key nutrients we're missing in New Zealand, vitamin D, I've already mentioned that. I'm very passionate about vitamin D. It's such an important nutrient. But one study looking at New Zealand population showed that 84% of New Zealanders are insufficient, and that's at 80 nanomoles, which is kind of like the level we need for health. But when we look at that, it's not really surprising. We're frightened of the sun now, for rightfully so. You don't want to get burnt, but we do make it from synthesis in the sun. We have to be outside in summer, between 11 and 3, without sunscreen. So most of us, don't do that. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but but then we do get vitamin D from food, but it's like sardines and beef liver and kidneys, and so people aren't really eating those foods so much anymore. So not really surprising we're so deficient. Another one that's really deficient in New Zealand is iodine. Iodine's really important for your thyroid gland, controls your metabolism, and so again, we know that New Zealand population is deficient in iodine. That's why the government put potassium iodide in salt, but we're still probably not getting really enough iodine for optimal thyroid function. So seaweed is going to be one of the best sources. Selenium, it's a trace mineral. New Zealand soils are very low in selenium. Selenium is really important at making our body's base antioxidant to protect us from kind of a whole range of environmental toxins and oxidative damage, really. And so Brazil nuts would be a great source of selenium. And then you into sort of things like just broad spectrum B vitamins. Many of us, we're not getting the B vitamins we need for energy production. Even though, we're eating fresh vegetables, they aren't necessarily as fresh as they need to be. They're kind of already old when we're eating them, even though they're fresh. And so the nutrient levels degrade over time. And so ideally, we've got to be getting them out the ground and into our body as fast as possible. And that's why when I retrained in nutrition and was taught a lot of this stuff, I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to grow my own food. And so that's, that's I'm lucky enough now to be able to do that, well, my wife actually grows it. Very thankful. She loves veggie gardening. And so, yeah, they're kind of some of the key nutrients we've got to be careful of in New Zealand, and then obviously looking to correct them by eating specific foods or by supplementing.
Nice. And in terms of, I guess, that leads on from the nutrients into that whole kind of taking care of yourself, obviously, the nutrition side of things, and eating fresh and non-processed.
Yeah.
And as parents and educators and teachers, sometimes that can be easier said than done, because we kind of fall into this way of thinking that, you know, we need to take care of everybody else before we take care of ourselves, to our own detriment and to the detriment of our own health. So if you were talking to a mum or a dad or an educator or a teacher or someone who's, you know, working hard to shape human destiny, and that's a big job, and maybe lacking a little bit in their own diet, lifestyle, health and nutrition, what would you say to them would be the most important thing to be thinking about when it comes to taking care of themselves?
Wow, yeah, that's a great big question and a great question. I kind of take it at levels. I think the first level you mentioned around like prioritizing yourself. I think you know, it's like in the plane when you get on a plane to go international, which obviously we don't do so much anymore or right now. But you know, that they talk about putting on the mask, and who do they say put the mask on first?
Yourself.
Yeah. And so this is exactly, you know, because you can only, your capacity to help other people is only as strong as your own inner strength and health and well-being. And it's a very common thing, particularly particularly in women, I guess, because that nurturing, more mothery nurturing sort of way of being, that they tend to sort of kind of give away all their life force and don't put any in for themselves. So the first thing is to kind of start on yourself and prioritize yourself, and even just that mind, that sort of mind switch up around just, okay, let's get myself healthy, and I think that's benefits through to coming through the children as well, because that modeling behavior, you know, children learn a lot from modeling rather than actually telling them, I tend to believe. And so, you know, if you can model that behavior for them, you're actually setting up good habits for them as children to be young adults. Going through those other aspects question is, you know, I think a lot of people are really busy in the modern world. They're stressed. They're, you know, sometimes overwhelmed. And, you know, one thing I'm mindful of with nutrition is that I don't want it to be another thing that you have to do. You know, I don't want it to have, you know, like feel, oh my gosh, now I've got to eat blueberries all the time, or I've got to eat this next superfood or anything like that. It's so I would say start where you're at, wherever you're at. With nutrition, start there and to make small incremental changes. So it doesn't have to be a huge thing. You know, if you can do things 80% well most of the time, then you're going to be on a pretty good track. Okay, and so kind of start with what you can do, if that makes sense. I'm just really mindful is that, you know, a lot of your educators, their parents, their educators are putting a lot of energy out, and I don't necessarily want to make life harder for them. I want to make life easier. And so on that front, you know, some of the things that they could do that would probably give them the biggest benefit right now. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's lots of things that we could all do. You know, whether we could exercise maybe more, we could go to bed earlier, we can get more sleep, we could drink more water, we could drink less caffeine, less alcohol. There's lots of things we could do, but often we choose not to do those because for various reasons. You know, and that's fine. And
we all need a wine sometimes, no?
Absolutely, you know, absolutely, you know, like, yeah, I've got nothing against that. And so, one thing that they probably could do would be take a high-quality multivitamin. And I know that seems like a really, but you know, you're talking about taking a couple of capsules in the morning with some water, and the difference that will make to most people's bodies and their performance and how they feel. It's well worth the time and the money invested in that, just because, you know, we've got thousands of biochemical pathways that are reliant on these nutrient cofactors. And if we don't have them, then these metabolic pathways are rate limited. So you simply cannot make energy at a cellular level. You simply can't make serotonin to feel happy and good within. You struggle to make melatonin for good quality sleep. And so, our immune system's dependent on nutrient cofactors to have a strong, resilient immune function. And our ability to cope with stress is dependent on nutrients. And so for me, it's like that's a really basic thing that I think people can do.
Yeah, nice. Robin has, and this ties in quite nicely, and I could just mention that if you've got questions that you want to ask Ben while we're talking, feel free to post them in the comments. Robin's just asked a question around vitamin supplements and do they actually work, because you hear so much varying information on the quality of them, I suppose, for one, and whether they actually make a difference.
Yeah, that's a great question, Robin. Thank you. And the answer is very much depending on the supplement. There's a number of supplements, if not a lot of supplements out there that I would question if they do work or not. And the reason being is the forms they're putting in there are very poor forms, so they're poorly absorbed. The levels of the nutrients are often at quite low levels, so they're not necessarily going to work. The research who I'm doing my PhD under, Professor Julia Rutledge at Canterbury University, she's done the most research on a multivitamin and mental health of anybody in the world. She's like the world leader in treating mental health conditions with basically a multivitamin. And so she uses quite a strong product. It's actually a Canadian product that she uses, but she gets incredible results for all sorts of mental health conditions, for stress, relieving stress, resilience, using a multivitamin. So we know certainly for mental health and for stress, resilience, reducing anxiety, that are kind of a high quality multivitamin is very effective.
And would you say the same for children?
Yeah, children, it's, yes, I've always, take this with a pinch of salt because I'm a clinical nutritionist and I'm into this, but, like as soon as my children were old enough to sort of having solids, I was giving them extra nutrients. I was giving them a kid's chewable multi, I was giving them a kid's chewable fish oil, and I was giving them a probiotic. And so, yeah, and we still tried to get them. We got away with that for quite a number of years because we'd call them specials. And so we'd say, "Oh, take your specials." We didn't call them supplements. We called them specials.
Yeah, my kids love them.
They taste. Yeah, they tasted okay, so it worked okay. Whereas now they're older and they've kind of they know enough about it that they're like, "Dad, they're supplements. Call them what they are." And now it's like there's like I can't be, I got a 12-year-old, so and so she's like, I can't be bothered taking them, and so now we're having to find other ways to motivate her. Whether that's to do with skin and things like that. It's about finding their with Tiny Nation talk about your why. It's about finding their why, what's her why, what does she want in her life to be healthy and strong, and so
nice. And just to finish off that thread of conversation, Cheryl's asked, is there a vitamin that you would recommend as being a really good vitamin for children?
Believe it or not, it's really it's challenging with vitamins for children. I actually imported one from the US for my children, and so that's available on the BePure website. It's not we don't make it, but it's just we get it in from the US, and so I'd probably recommend checking that one out. And so I'd probably recommend checking that one out. With children's vitamins, it is. I've been trying to actually make a children's vitamin for.
I was going to say there's a whole market for you then.
I've been trying to make one for it's been in R&D for maybe 4 to 5 years now. It's just it's very, very difficult to make a high quality product that children will take, because as soon as you start putting a lot of nutrients in it, it tastes horrible. And so finding that balance is very, very difficult. But hopefully one day we'll crack that one.
Well, while we're on the topic of children and nutrients, as a dad yourself, you're probably no stranger to the trials and tribulations that can come with wanting your children to be healthy and eat nutritious, green, leafy things.
Yeah.
and to have a really good attitude towards food from a young age. So do you have any tips and tricks for us parents out there who are banging on that drum and fighting that battle with our children, and how we can instill those good food habits?
Yeah, I do, but probably some of your educators will be like, "Oh, we already know that," and which is great because you're educators. Whereas it's very interesting to me because obviously when you have children, you don't really have any training in it, and so I've got training in nutrition, but I haven't got training in being a parent, and so you kind of have to learn it by doing, and so with it's sort of like one of the so I'm just going to share some of the things I've learned, and maybe they're useful or not, but one of the things I've learned is that it's kind of like my job's not to be their friend, my job is to be their parent. And so I learned this kind of I used to want to be their friend, and so therefore didn't necessarily like setting boundaries and structure to things because whereas now I've learned, no, my job's to be their parent, and therefore as a parent it's really important to set boundaries and structure. So that kind of leads to the second aspect with food and nutrition. I think boundaries and structure are really, really important. Well, I'll ask you, Erin, you in the education space, how important is boundaries and structure for children?
Oh yeah, incredibly. And when it comes to temperament, I think that plays a whole nother part in it, in terms of how children relate to the boundaries and the structure, because some really need it in some ways, just to know that they've got that routine. To know what to expect.
They're safe. They're almost, it's almost a safety thing, right? They're not having to make choices, that they just know that they're taken care of. And it's the same with nutrition. So I think, having boundaries and structure with nutrition is really important. So it can be little simple things when it comes to, say, treat foods, is making sure that, they know that, like, so I make gluten, I used to, they make them themselves now, they're old enough, but I used to make them gluten-free pancakes on the weekend. And so they knew that that was a treat food, and I mean, they're still super healthy pancakes, but that but that was still but they got maple syrup and stuff like that. So that was on the weekend, and they know that there's certain other foods that we again make a really lovely, it's healthy kind of chocolate sauce, but they know that it's only birthdays only. It's like birthdays, special occasions. They're only going to get chocolate sauce if it's and so it's sort of like setting those boundaries. So for a lot of parents, like who may be wanting to move their kids away from really sweet breakfast cereals, is moving those really sweet breakfast cereals just onto the weekend only. So that's weekend only food. And so then during the week, you may be having, a lower sugar breakfast cereal, or you may be making porridge, or you may be making, whole grain toast, or whatever the case may be, depending on where you are in your journey and where what level you're happy as a parent with your children eating for nutrition. Now, obviously, for Linda and I, we probably hold quite a high standard for what we're happy with regarding their nutrition. So it's particularly my wife. Yeah, my wife more. Yeah, absolutely. My wife more than tends to be more than I, because as we were speaking about off air before. Like another thing that I see is really important is to actually have treats in and to have these foods in their life, because at the end of the day, for me, you want to be shaping a healthy relationship with food, and the emotional attachments that come with food, so that that as they move into adulthood, that they have a healthy relationship with food, because we just see so many young adults these days with eating disorders, that for me, I've got two girls, and so I'm very, very mindful around them being aware that it's okay to eat certain foods, and for them to know the boundaries and things like that. So it's really, for me, a lot of it's about, I don't want to have them, I don't want to deprive them in any way, because, deprivation really leads to binging. And so, and sneaking food. And so it's about just finding those balances. So to give you an example of this, just to give you like real life examples, we went to Rainbow's End, the recent holidays just recently up in Auckland, which is a wonderful day there, and they had like a show, and for the kids, and they had a lolly scramble. And so my 9-year-old was like, "Can I get in the lolly scramble?" I'm like, "Yeah, get in there." She had a great time in the lolly scramble, collected like 9-10 lollies, had a great time. And obviously it's really important to have that experience and enjoy that. But then it's about, okay, well, how many of those are you going to eat now?
Yeah.
And she so then we have a discussion about how many she's going to eat. And so we kind of decided like 3 for the rest of the day is good. Because, and we had a conversation around, well, we know that if you have more than that, your blood sugar level is going to go up, then you're going to crash and you're not going to be so happy. And she knows that if she has too much sugar or if she doesn't eat regularly, her blood sugar levels really crash and she feels she has a tantrum. She gets sad.
Yeah.
And so we said, well, yeah, as we all do. Yeah, we just, as adults, we get better at hiding it. And so the 9-year-olds. And so so we had that discussion and we decided that 3 was good for the rest of the day and that she'd hold those and give 3 to her sister. And so that still had lollies, but just trying to, and I don't know whether that's right or wrong. I don't know. Ask me in 10 years and we'll find out.
Oh, well, it sounds pretty spot on. Very aspirational for some of us. Taking the other 6 lollies away. So Steve's just asked in relation to your answer here around boundaries and I guess, that whole idea of when they're a child, they don't necessarily know what boundaries look like. And so they do need adults to make those choices for them because they don't know what good choices look like. So she's basically said, what age would you be starting to kind of really start focusing on that? And would you agree that it's kind of a conversation you would start having as soon as, even pre-verbally, I suppose, so that they can start understanding some of those concepts?
Yeah, I think it's completely individualized and it depends on what you want as a parent and what you want for your children. But I think it starts at breastfeeding. Because there's different theories around breastfeeding, but if the boob's available all the time, the child very quickly learns that the boob's available all the time, and then mum's getting woken up constantly through the night, and it doesn't necessarily go well. Whereas other mums they feed at certain times and they get into a routine of feeding. So I don't have. I just as a clinician, we see all these different scenarios, and so I think it can start as early as you want it to start. For us, we weren't super strict on that. We weren't super strict on feeding times, like as breastfeeding and stuff like that. It was more relaxed than that. But I think structure is really important because of stable blood sugar levels. So children, from my observation with them, they generally need to be eating something every few hours. They don't have big stomachs. Otherwise, their blood sugar levels are going to crash, and behavioural issues are going to come up really quickly. So for me, stabilising blood sugar levels is absolutely a priority for children and for adults. And so, regular eating is, I think, very important.
Cool. And so while we're on the topic of children's nutrition, what advice would you give to parents like me in terms of the lunchbox inspiration, the old lunchbox inspiration that doesn't boomerang back at the end of the day, Go in there that come back home again a little bit brown and wrinkly. So have you got some magic tricks to help us with that?
I'm not sure if I do, but I can give you some ideas maybe. And so I don't do school lunches that often, but when I do, it's fridge tilt for me. I'm a fridge tilt dad. So I literally just go in the fridge and I'm like, what's in here? And that's kind of what they get. And it could be anything from, whatever they're liking at that moment, they go through periods of liking those little pickled cucumbers, little gherkins. I put like 5 of them in there, going through periods of liking olives. So I put olives in there, periods of eating different cheeses. So I put cheese in there. So from a more structured aspect though, so Linda does the lunch boxes more regularly, and she basically works on a protein, a vegetable, a fruit and a carb. And so when she looks at the lunchbox, she's making sure she's hitting something that's got, high in protein. So whether that's, cheese or salami or something like that, a vegetable. So, it could be carrot. It could be, again, our children, they've been brought up with with vegetables as a snack, so that we can kind of get away with that. Now, if you, I'm just saying this for the viewers at home, if you haven't, you're going to have a mutiny on your hands if you then just start putting vegetables in the lunchbox. And so you have to, again, just progressively step towards these things. Perhaps, have a discussion about what vegetable would you eat? And, maybe it was a carrot, maybe it's a carrot with a dip. And so we actually have, quite specialized lunch boxes with different compartments so that you can put dips and things like that in there. So, yeah, then obviously fruit's an easy one for many people. And then a carbohydrate, so that could be like some homemade cake. It could be like a, Macy at the moment, as you may know, we're lucky. We got incredible bread called OMG bread in Hawke's Bay, which is like a gluten-free, seedy, very, very nutrient dense, high fiber loaf. And so we'll do a toasted cheese toasty in the morning, and that'll be cold, and she'll have that. And so it gets the protein in there as well, and so that works quite well. Other things like Bella at the moment, she's really into smoothies, and so again we have like mini thermoses, that keep things cold. So she'll do a berry smoothie, so you can add hemp protein into that. And so both my girls are kind of like borderline vegetarian, not because I'm a big carnivore. My body prefers to run on meat, but they both are virtually vegetarian, or would prefer to be that way. And so so getting protein in a 12-year-old is not necessarily that easy then. And so, sort of like do a berry hemp smoothie. That goes quite well. A chia pudding. So you can make a chia seed pudding, which is quite nice. That's, that goes down well. Even some basic stuff like rice pudding. Just make your own homemade rice pudding. Obviously, it's rice carbohydrates with milk, which is protein and fat. So it's quite it's quite nice. And so yes, it's filling, and so it kind of ticks some of those boxes, and hopefully, but I got to share a story here, and it's quite funny. Like we send Macy sometimes to school, so she'll have this toasted cheese sandwich. It's OMG bread, it's organic cheese. It's beautiful.
All the good stuff.
She swapped all the good stuff, and she swaps it for a Nutella sandwich, a white bread Nutella sandwich. So it's sort of like you got to laugh. And so the thing that makes me, the thing that makes me smile is like the other child obviously wants the high quality cheese sandwich in order to give up the Nutella white bread. So her body's obviously wanting some nutrition. So it's nice that she's getting some.
Yeah, those are some great ideas, actually. I love the smoothie idea. My boys are quite big on smoothies. And the one thing I've found is working really nicely in my 5-year-old's lunchbox at the moment, and boiled eggs. Loves them.
Nice.
Loves peeling them in the morning when we're making his lunchbox. It's his little job. And like you say, it's so cyclic, isn't it? They kind of go through phases of a few weeks, they get really hot on something, and then all of a sudden that kind of changes.
Yeah, it does. It does. And so it's, I know it's an ongoing kind of challenge for many people with the lunchboxes with children. So good luck. Good luck is what I can say. Part of the journey of parenting.
Robin's just suggested that Pinterest is quite good for vegetarian recipes too. And there's been a few comments here just on children and eating. And I think something that teachers can struggle with sometimes in centres, and this has come through in a comment here from Hayley, is obviously that sometimes the lunchboxes come with the child, and children kind of get fixated on one particular thing. And there's one child in care that only eats roti bread. She's talked about.
Right. It's challenging when you've got fussy eaters. It is a real challenge. I mean, we're not afraid to sort of say that's what's for dinner, and if you're not hungry, that's fine. So we've had to have a few nights like that where we just go. You just have to go. For adults, I have no problem with adults fasting. Children probably fine overnight, and so so sometimes you have to just be strong, set the boundary. Obviously they're going to try and test that boundary. They're going to push up against it to see how flexible it is, and you just have to, a united front is important.
Nice, cool. as we lead in from that, in terms of the winter season and the cold and flu season, and probably more specifically everything that we're dealing with worldwide at the moment with the pandemic, and I guess this intense urge to want to keep ourselves well, keep our children well, particularly in this world that we're living in, and obviously very lucky here in New Zealand because we're not under anywhere near the same restrictions as other countries at the moment. And sometimes we can probably play into that a little bit and forget about what's raging on around us.
That's true.
But what would you talk about? I know on your website, I read some interesting bits on your website around just cold and flu, immunity support, and how that plays into to COVID and to, I guess, just building that really strong immunity. So that kind of plays into the gut health space, doesn't it? And making sure that your gut health is really, really strong.
It does. I guess I'll start with sort of some of the lifestyle factors, and then we'll kind of go into the diet, and then we'll go into nutrients, and then we'll go into gut health. Because so lifestyle factors, it's interesting. A lot of the things that are good for us to be healthy are also really good for a lot of other things. So, like exercise, it's really important for us to maintain our health, but it's also really important for mental health. It's also really important for immunity. And so, sleep, getting adequate sleep, again, really important for mental health, really important for energy, also really important for immunity. Managing stress, same deal, immunity. And so, like these key lifestyle factors that, we get a lot of mileage from doing those things. So making sure we're getting adequate sleep, making sure we're, moderate exercise for immunity has been shown to be very beneficial. Managing stress levels, very beneficial. And then we start moving into diet. And so basically looking at a whole food diet. So a whole food diet, depending on where you are in your nutrition journey, a whole food diet is basically, if you stick to the outside of the supermarket as much as possible, you're going to be eating whole food. So if you went into the supermarket, had a good look around, you're going to be in the middle of the fruit and vegetable section. That's your best source of carbohydrates. So you eat abundantly. Go around the back of the supermarket, your meats, and that's your high quality fats and proteins. Eat abundantly, and then you're around the other side, other back aisle, and you're in sort of the dairy products. If you're dairy tolerant, again, fine eating those. And then the rest of the supermarket, I mean, obviously there's pockets of food in there, such as, the brown basmati rice and olives and tinned salmon and things like that. But the rest of the supermarket, there's pockets of foods in there, but most of it's generally not food. And so just trying to eat a whole food diet, so staying on the outside of the supermarket is going to be, one of the best things we can do for our bodies. And then from there, we're moving into, base nutrients. So there's a lot of base nutrients that we require just to maintain our immune system. So these are things like B vitamins, selenium, I've already mentioned magnesium, zinc, vitamin C, vitamin D. And so these are vitamin A, vitamin E. So you like just base nutrients. And so we just need to make sure we've got like a base level of those. And then if we are, having an increased exposure to a pathogen or increased risk of infection from a pathogen, then you really want to make sure you get adequate, more zinc, more vitamin C, and make sure your vitamin D levels are up. So those three become really, really important in the kind of short-term acute stage of fighting off a pathogen. And then gut health plays in. Gut health has a huge role to play for your immunity because up to 80% of your immune system is located in your digestive system. And so, and when the surface area of the intestines is 20 to 30 square meters, whereas the surface area of your skin is just 2 to 3 meters. So we've actually kind of got 10 times more surface area in the gut. And so it's actually our greatest chance of getting a pathogen into our body is from eating it. And so this is why much of our immune system's in our gut. The beneficial bacteria within our gut is almost the first line of defense for our immune system. They play a role in defending us. So it's a synergistic relationship. So gut health plays an incredibly important role in kind of modulating our immune response and keeping a strong immune response going. So, gut health is also very important for that. Some things that we can do for gut health are going to be around fermented foods, like consuming sauerkraut, even consuming yogurt, coconut yogurt if you're dairy intolerant, perhaps having the odd kombucha, which is a fermented tea drink, could be beneficial. And obviously, like probiotics as well. A lot of research around probiotics and the beneficial effect of probiotics on immunity because of this mechanism via the gut. So yeah, kind of but one of the best ways we can have our guts be healthy is eat a whole food diet. So they support each other. In that eating a whole food diet, we're going to have a healthier gut. Whereas if we eat a lot of sugar, a lot of processed packaged foods, that then feeds the unfriendly bacteria, which kind of causes something called dysbiosis, which is an imbalance in the bacterial levels within the gut, which then impacts our immunity.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a lot.
No, not at all. And I think that's really fascinating. And so would you say a probiotic should be like an established part of your nutritional kind of care regularly, or just if you're kind of trying to fight something off, or?
Yeah, I think if that's a great question, and I don't have a straight answer for that. It's I think people ideally, I would like people to get well, let me step back. The research shows that the more broader, more diverse beneficial bacteria we have, the healthier we are as a whole being. And so I ideally like people to get exposure to, like I said, sauerkraut and these kind of. So if you're eating those foods daily, I would say that invariably you don't need to take a probiotic. All right. Now, if you've got some kind of gut dysfunction, some gut problem like constipation, diarrhea, loose stools, bloating, then probiotics probably going to be worth trying for sure. And certainly if you've got you're suffering from low immunity, then I definitely think a probiotic would be like you pick up every cold that goes around work. Then definitely a probiotic is going to be helpful.
Yeah, nice. And just to round that conversation off, Tiny Nation is at the moment giving away one of the BePure packages of the vitamin C. My boys call it orange juice. They quite like it, the powdered vitamin C. It's a staple in our family. So the powdered vitamin C and the zinc. So if you want to go on the draw to win that, we're going to draw that on Monday. So get online, get onto our Facebook or Instagram page and just tag yourself and you'll go on the draw.
Love it. Yeah, the Super Boost C is an incredible product. As you said, it's a liquid vitamin C. It enables you to get a lot more vitamin C in. It's just sweetened with stevia, so there's no sugar in it, and I think we've nailed the. I feel like we've nailed the taste profile on that after many years. Like it tastes.
It was your first product, was it?
It was probably my third. Yeah, BePure 1 was the first, but it was pretty early on in the piece. And so yeah.
Nice. So we kind of touched on this at the start of the interview, and you talked about kind of those big, lofty ambitions and aspirations. And I suppose in a post-lockdown world, obviously after everything shut down, and I know you're big on the speaker circuit and getting out and about, and like you say, trying to educate as much as possible. Where do you see your work evolving over the next few years, and what's next on the cards?
Yeah, it's a great question, Erin. I don't really know, to be honest. I don't know. I mean, like you said, I mean, your viewers may not. I was doing sort of 120 flights plus a year for the last sort of 4 years, and so COVID came as an absolute reprieve for me. It was just beautiful to be at home for a few weeks, and I've been able to continue doing that. And what we've been able to actually do is, transition our business model to more online because of COVID, with great benefit that I don't have to travel as much. And so, at the moment, we're really just looking at how we can help customers more. How you're really trying to understand what people are struggling with, and trying to make life easier for them to be healthier. So that's that's really what we're trying to look at the moment is really trying to understand where people are struggling and how can we make it easier to be healthier, because a lot of people know what to do, but it is challenging, and it takes more time, and it can be more expensive to eat healthier and prepare food. So we're just looking at how can we make it easier for people. So that's our price. So I'm not really sure what that's going to end up looking like, but that's certainly what we've been working on.
The beauty of the journey, hey?
Yeah, we'll see where it takes us.
So Caroline's just asked, what would you recommend in terms of iron, absorbing iron? So obviously low in
So with
iron.
iron, so if you're low in iron, and low iron absorption can be problematic, I would look for an iron biglycinate. Hopefully you'll be able to get one. But there's various forms of iron. A lot of the forms of iron are quite constipating, and so they're really problematic. And so I would probably look for 24 or 25 milligrams of iron in a biglycinate form. And that's non-constipating, which is good, and then also gets the iron up.
Nice, awesome. And Robin's just made a comment that actually leads me on to my final question, which is we've got some quite engaged people on this chat tonight, Ben, and Mike Bedford's joined us. I don't know if you've heard of Mike Bedford, but he's one of New Zealand's leading public health experts in early childhood education. And he mentioned a little bit earlier in our talk that he would be really keen to connect with you and understand more about your work, because I think there's quite a strong correlation with his work. And Robin's just mentioned, would you do online access Q&As for parents and centres, via Zoom or Facebook? So if people do want to connect with you post this, or have more of a chat with you, or engage more with the work that you do in that education space, how are they best to do that?
Yeah, it's just probably, obviously, through social channels is one way. So that's BePure Ben Warren on Facebook, Instagram, bepure.co.nz, and just send an email to info@BePure and just say, can you pass this on to Ben? And it's pretty straightforward. Yeah, it's. I'm generally up for most things, trying to get the word out there around nutrition, and I am very passionate about children's nutrition. I'll tell a quick story here, and you may not know this, is that a number of years ago I was doing a personal growth course, and I had very positive role models for nutrition as a child. There was Popeye, and you're probably too young to remember Popeye. But
I remember Popeye. So Popeye was man.
He ate spinach and got really strong. Okay, so spinach, obviously superfood, one of the top 10 nutrients in the world regarding nutrient density, and so I guess that always stuck with me around Popeye. So I kind of felt that many of our children didn't have a positive role model like that. So I actually ended up building a superhero called Captain Healthy, and I went into 7 daycare centers and tried to it's completely all positive. Like, I had a full custom built superhero suit, and and I do still have it. It's in the cupboard up here, and I haven't used it in many years.
Oh, well, occasionally, there you go, Tim. This could be the first of many appearances from Captain.
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, it was the most scariest thing I've ever done, because having 44-year-olds run at you is a frightening thing, and and so anyway, it was a bit of fun. We actually measured some impacts from that, and it was very positive. And my wife's working currently on a charity platform for Captain Healthy to try and kind of take it online and make it available for parents. And recipes and things like that. And so we'll see. It's we'll see.
Amazing.
That's just it's a bit of fun.
Yeah. Mike's just commented on the fun topic and said that he's seriously concerned about the idea of a PhD for fun. So there you go.
Me too, Mike. Don't get me wrong. It sounded like a good idea at the time.
Yeah. Hey, thank you so much for coming along tonight, Ben. We so appreciate having you online to chat and to talk us through some of those big minefields that we face as parents and educators and teachers when it comes to our own health. And that whole idea of you can't pour from an empty cup. We talk about it all the time at Tiny Nation, and that self-care being the most important thing. So heaps of insights around that, and around how we can take care of ourselves more with lifestyle and health and well-being. And then obviously how we can trick our children. Nice.
Yeah, we just gotta try and empower them. Thanks, Erin. I really appreciate having you on the show, and the best. Thanks for all your listeners, and best of luck with raising our little people. As you know, it's not an easy job, but it's an important one.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ben, and thanks to everyone
Thank
who's
you all.
tuned in tonight. See you
Have
later.
a great evening.
Ka kite.
Cheers.